Welcome to the 6 o'clock, May the 14th, 2019 Charter Task Force meeting. I'm Gary Hudspeth, the chairman. We have 6 members here today, and the public was invited, but this is mainly going to be another organization and training session for our task working group. So at the moment, there won't be a public comment period at 6 o'clock, but we're going to finish at 6:45, take a 15-minute break, and then at 7 o'clock, we'll have public comments, just like a normal board meeting, if you have one. And there'll be other people who are coming at 7. The first thing I want to do with the task force is to pull out your calendars, and Susan has the schedule here for room 104. Task force meetings have to be here because we're being recorded for public use. So I'd like to pick 2 future task force meetings before the end of June in this room. Now, did you find out?
The 28th and 29th are available.
Oh, great. Okay. First, I'd like to ask if the 28th or 29th are available for the task force, because that would be exactly 2 weeks from tonight, and I'd like to not postpone it.
So not the 28th and 29th of June, you're talking May?
May.
Yeah.
What time?
Your choice. Unless Susan
Just 6
says
o'clock
otherwise.
again?
No, that's fine.
6 o'clock's fine. Does anyone have a preference for 28th or 29th of May at 6 o'clock? Speak up.
My only well, if we're all here, it's the 27th is the holiday, isn't it? Isn't that
Yes,
Memorial Day?
it is.
Is anybody taking like a 5-day weekend out of this, or a 4-day weekend?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I know Steve won't be here on the 28th, on the Tuesday.
All right. I'm looking for task group participation.
I'm okay for
Task
either one.
force. Either one?
29th works for me. I already have it in my calendar as the 29th. I don't know how or why that happened.
I'm
Because you're
good.
organized.
I like it.
If it's in her calendar, that makes it official. It's the 29th.
Greg, did you say no?
29th is fine for me.
Oh.
Yeah.
Jack?
29th will work.
Pardon?
29th works.
Okay, so the 29th at 6 p.m. is our next task force meeting. That'll be a public meeting. All right, then I'd like to schedule one more.
How long should we be planning on for these? All in 2 hours?
This is when we're actually going to discuss changes, so at least say 2 hours.
2 hours.
Bring your sleeping bag.
2 hours. The second is, we'll do one in June, so what's available, let's see.
Actually, if you want to speed them up, bring your kids.
15 minutes.
2 weeks after that would be, what's available is the 11th and 12th of June. Anyone like those dates?
Either one works for me.
What were the dates? I'm sorry.
11th or 12th?
On the 11th, we have a Crow Board Appeals meeting, which is
It's
supposed to be over.
Oh, it was canceled?
It's canceled.
Was canceled? Really?
So?
It's,
I have here,
believe it's
I have it
on-
canceled.
It's on
Oh.
the 21st. Is that? I'm
Well,
pretty
there-
sure.
Oh, I've got it here, and then I have
Friday.
canceled. I have 2. I have the
Friday.
Crow Board Appeals, then I have canceled beside it. Event has been canceled for June 11th, correct?
That's pretty,
Right, we'll need to,
Affirmative.
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
so now I'm waiting for Greg and Susan.
Either works.
Well, the 29th was what, a Wednesday? I mean, should we go with the Wednesday and try to be a little consistent, or?
It's okay.
Either is okay with me.
Yeah.
Survivors on that night. It's an amazing race.
Tape it.
On demand.
So I get Wednesday.
Do you want
Oh, I guess.
You got a TV right over there. Just put it on.
So how does the 12th at 6 p.m.?
Works.
All right? We have now scheduled 2 task force meetings. By the time we get together in a second, we'll schedule 2 more in advance. Okay, good. You have an agenda I put on your desk. That's for us. The next thing is on the stapled task working group on your desk, you have groupings for changes that I received from staff and the Crow Board, and I regrouped them into categories. My selection is rules, Crow Board actions.
Yes, we need to call Kathy.
Oh, crap.
There.
You're right.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. And I had it right here, and I've already tested it. Thank you for reminding me.
That's a good call.
Yep.
That's Vanessa.
Hello, this is Kathy.
Kathy, Gary Hudspeth here.
Hi, Gary.
Hi, well, we're in a meeting, and I'm so sorry we called late.
Don't worry.
I had it right in front of me, and I completely forgot. So here's what we've done. The first thing was to schedule 2 task force meetings, so can you check your calendar? Because we've kind of agreed to May the 29th, it's a Wednesday, at 6 o'clock. How does that sound?
I will have to call in. I'm in New York on vacation.
All right, I'm writing that down. And how,
Call in.
yes, it'll be at 6 o'clock on 29th, if you're available, but everybody has that. The second was, we looked at June the 12th, which is also a Wednesday.
I'm in California, but I can try to call in.
Well, both of them will be at 6 PM.
Okay?
Well, we got all the rest of the members to agree to that, so I think we'll stick with that.
Okay, very good.
All right, now, what you don't have, although you and I talked about it last week, is each member has a list of 5 working groups in front of them. I've categorized these into, these are the initial list of proposed considerations for changes from the Kroll Board and staff over a period of about 2 years. Now, this isn't the end of it, this is just the beginning.
Okay?
So the first category is rules, which is, you might say, covenants. The second is Coral Board actions, things the Coral Board does. The third group is budgeting and finance. Fourth group is homeowner responsibilities. And the fifth group is sort of a catch-all called governance. Now, for the board members, if you're looking closely, there's a handful of items that you won't see. I've held those back pending getting more research done by staff and legal. And I'm sitting on those right now, but they will be redistributed among us as the weeks go by, as I get background information from staff and legal. I didn't want us to tear into something and then find out that we were going in the wrong direction because legal said otherwise.
Are you expecting those will be a 6th group, or will they fall into one of the 5?
They will fall into the other 5 and a 6th group that Kathy has. She knows it.
Yeah.
So here's the first thing is I'm going to ask you to do is consider, I told you this is not a complete list, but this is our starting point. We will have other issues. I'd like to work these over the next 6 weeks. And by July, we should have other issues. There are some things that are out of our control, and that's legal issues, issues that regard TCC rights, and Florida statutes 720. Apologize, I'm not looking at you. Okay. And there are
So to
also
be
issues-
clear, if it's illegal to do it, we're just not gonna consider it, or
Right.
if by state law we can't do it, et cetera, et cetera.
Right,
That's
we're
what
not
you're really
gonna-
saying.
We're not wasting our time talking about something that's been decided.
Okay.
Right. Also, there are issues that may come from the public or from other sources, and it may come from us. We will, as we get familiar with the governing documents, you're going to bring issues up before the board. There are other issues that can be categorized as design guidelines. Those are specifically for covenants, and I will tell you that those are the bailiwick of the ARC committee. And I do not want to take the job of ARC. That is their job. When ARC makes a change in design guidelines, they bring it to the Kroll Board, and the Kroll Board makes a determination of whether that's up or down. So we won't be discussing design guidelines. However, there are corollaries to those in the charter called the Exhibit C, which are rules. We can discuss those. That's valid. All right, so, now, before we move on to the next item, I'm gonna ask each of you now to look at these 5 working groups, and right now, you're gonna choose one, and I'm gonna put your name on it. So speak now, or you get the last one.
Oh my, I might want one,
You want number 1?
maybe,
Susan?
sure.
Rules, all right.
I'll take number 2.
Greg has already signed up for number 2.
Oh dear is not an option.
I was still looking for one, can we work together, because there's only 5, there's 7 of us, or?
No.
We're all gonna be working together on a
We're
lot
all-
of stuff.
While you're reading, let me explain. In the working groups, you're going to discuss this with the public and other members and come to an agreed change, and I'll explain that in a few minutes. And then, everything that the working group does comes back to us as a task force, and then we will look at it additionally on our own. And we may accept, modify, rule against the working group, depending on what other information we have. So you're gonna be looking at all these issues at the end, one way or the other.
I'd like 5.
I like the way you spun that. It was very positive. I would like number 5. I like that.
Believe me, Kathy and I have a working group, you just don't see it. It's the big ticket items. I call them the big ticket items. You still there, Kathy?
Yeah.
Okay.
I am.
So what's left is,
That was left over.
that's right, you and I got it. It's the big ticket items. I have 3 and 4 available.
What's 3 again?
Budgeting and finance.
All right, I'll do 4 then.
Well played, sir, well played.
That's too easy.
What's the official title,
So am I missing something?
Governance is yours. Governance is 5.
Who did number 4? Jack?
No, I got 4.
Yeah.
3 is
Homeowner
to be done by
responsibilities
Gary.
for.
Eileen, I thought you had,
Yeah.
you took
Yeah,
that.
5.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
I need to
know
5.
what you- Exactly what you
1, 2, 3.
You're missing
4.
number 3.
Oh, that's it, okay. Number 3, for tonight, I'm hosting number 3, but that's gonna be Kathy.
What is number 3, Gary?
Budgeting and finance,
Oh,
That's what happens when you're not here in person.
right,
you're right.
right, but I'm gonna be hosting it tonight if we get enough people.
Okay.
All right, so, don't worry, we all got help. Now I'm gonna pass out a separate item that's not on any of these lists, and we're gonna go through it as a team to see what I anticipate. You don't have this, I printed it up, so. Here's the way I envision it. We're going to do this exercise as a team, us, and this is what I'd like you to try to do in your working groups tonight and in the future. All right. There are instructions you'll see. When the issue is complete and you resolved it, you're going to document it in a Word revision mode. You all have an electronic copy of the charter, but you don't have the bylaws yet. I'm still waiting for a Word copy of the bylaws,
Okay.
but it's coming.
Okay, I didn't know you didn't have them.
Yeah. We got the charter,
Just not the bylaws.
not the
Okay.
bylaws. Okay.
Is that on your notes now, Susan?
Yep.
Yeah, it'll be.
Do you
on
have the
list.
ability to convert it?
Okay.
Pardon me?
Do you have the ability to convert
The
it?
attorneys have
It's
it.
gobbledygook when we,
Yeah, I
The
know.
attorney has it.
yeah.
When your working group is complete, don't wait till you've worked all of them on your list. Send them to me, the chairman, one at a time when you've completed. I will enter them into the master document that I have configuration control of. And yes, I make backups.
That's good.
Right. And when we reconvene as a task force, then we will look at those items that have been completed by the working groups, discuss them as a task force, and adjudicate them finally. And we'll be doing that over the weeks as we work them out. As you go through this example, you'll see the issue is class of membership discrepancy, is it 1 or 2? Under, yes, sir?
I could provide a lot of information on that one.
Well, no, but if you allow me to go through the exercise, I'm going to prepare you. You already know this, Jack. What I've written to you in the impact sentences is these are the actual sentences in the charter and the bylaws that are very specific that you'll have to probably modify or change. The considerations are other sentences that I've located in the charter and bylaws and other documents that you may or may not change, but they pertain and help you make a decision on what to do. So there's lots of considerations. When you're done, you're going to submit it, the working group's going to submit it to me, and you can put the date on there, sent to Gary Hudspeth on this date. I'm going to write down when the task force approved it, and then we'll make a determination of whether or not it goes on the ballot for the future, or it's just an administrative change, which doesn't go on the ballot. As you go through the working groups, I want you to take a temperature of the public to find out and get some feedback on whether this is important or not. Because whether or not you enact a change, my goal is to make a recording on paper of every change considered and what we decided. If we decided to change it, I'm going to put down why. If we decided not to change it and it never comes up for a vote, it'll be recorded in writing why the task force decided it wasn't important to change. So 10 years from now, there will be a document of all the work we did. Not the discussions, but what we decided and why we decided it. And I'm keeping that. Well, you're going to see it every time we meet. But I want you to collect the temperature of the feedback from the public.
And how do you do that?
How do I do that? That's, each of us are going to take notes during their public or meetings, like tonight.
Okay, so you mean like, so you don't mean reaching out outside of these meetings? You
No.
mean whatever feedback you
In the
get
working
in
group.
the meeting? Okay.
In the working group. Right. Okay, you can read the other instructions. Okay, so now let's look at this one. If you'll, your paper copy, turn to Charter, which is Section 1, 4.1. It's on page 11. And if you look at the first sentence, it says, the association has one class of membership, the owner membership, which is comprised of all owners, including builders, and the celebration company. There's one sentence. So I'm going to ask you, participation, how many classes of membership are there?
One,
One. And what is it composed of? How many entities?
owners, celebration company, and builders.
3. All right. Now read the second sentence. What does that tell us?
Can I explain this?
Oh, yeah, now's the time.
All right.
Okay.
I want to get everybody on the same page.
The original documents, under 6.3, says voting, the association shall have 2 classes of membership, Class A, Class B. Class A, where members shall be all owners, each Class A member shall have 1 vote. Class B, the sole Class B member shall be the celebration company. The rights of this Class B member under this declaration and the bylaws are specifically elsewhere. Anyway, it says, Class B membership shall terminate 2 years after termination of the Class B control period. Control period ended when the board became all
Autonomous.
owners.
Yes.
Okay, so that was in 2004. So that's what that was, there's only 1 class of ownership.
It's history.
Yeah.
Right. But what I want to impress on people is that second sentence says, as the recording of this amendment, the celebration company, TCC, has been converted into owner membership. So that tells me there's 1 class of owner membership, 1 class, and there's 3 entities. The only thing, and this is good because it tells me when it was done and why. The only thing I'm missing here, this is just my opinion, is as of the recording of this amendment, if you look at the front, there's 9 different amendments. So I don't know which one that was done in.
So you probably just need to delete that sentence.
Well,
Or
we'll
figure
talk
out which
about-
date it was.
Well,
That's
it's
something we
been
should
amended a
discuss.
couple times, that's
Yeah.
the issue.
Right.
But I think what you're going back to is in the bylaws, it says in 2.1 that
Right.
there's,
Well, we're getting there. Okay, so everybody's familiar with that, 4.1? Let's go to the other impact sentence, bylaws 2.1, and bylaws is tab 7, am I wrong? Let me help.
Service
Service
areas.
Yeah,
sure is.
tab 6. Tab 6 is that, so after you get through the table of contents, look at paragraph 2.1. Read that.
I know, just, it should have been corrected, but we were getting tired. And Charlie didn't catch it.
That's why I'm using this as an example. Anyone want to read that?
The association shall have 2 classes of membership,
Well-
owner membership and the celebration company membership.
Right, so we have a discrepancy here between the charter and the bylaws. Which one is correct?
Charter.
Right, the charter is correct because it tells us in the second sentence it was amended. So we need to change 2.1 to read pretty much exactly what chapter 4.1 says. Do I have concurrence?
Yep.
Yes.
Susan, Greg?
Yep.
All right. I'm going to write it, but in your working group, you are going to actually write the sentence so you can type it into a document and send it to me by email. But that's what I want you to do, is don't just assume that everybody agrees with what you're writing. I want you to write it out in a working group so you can submit it and have concurrence. And then I can put it in the master document.
Have you got a standard template by which you want us to do these, like a Word document?
No, you have the charter already in Word.
No, I understand that, but a template for any of the changes that we're proposing, if you're looking to document each one of them, hey, here's the rationale why, here's the old language, here's the new proposed language.
No, just put it in an email and do it in the revision mode so I can see what you're typing. You know, you're gonna get the bylaws in Word too.
Mhm.
And what I'm asking you to do is like cut and paste paragraph 4.1, except that's what we're doing tonight, paragraph 2.1, and then in the revision mode, cross out what you want to cross out and add what you want to add. And you take that little one page and email it to me, and I'll put it in the configuration control document.
Are you looking for us to also include in their notes, you were saying before, as to
Yes.
why we're making the changes?
Exactly, yes.
So you found this because it was on one of the list
Nope.
of items that have been brought up, or?
It wasn't on the list, it was on my list for
Okay.
years. I've been looking at this.
Something that bugged Gary.
Right, but I'm using it as a training session
Okay.
so that Greg, Susan, and Eileen and Jack will ask questions. This is how I'd like to see it done. And this is an example. Now, there are other considerations here, and it's all these other sentences, and we have time to look at them. Wait a minute, there's something else I wanted to ask. Everybody's looking at 2.1, right? You got it? Turn to the previous page. Turn to the second page.
Need the next page?
Yeah, the next page. There's 2 page 1s.
Oh.
Hey, wait a minute. Okay, I've already checked. The wording is exactly the same, except look at the top heading.
They got different headings, I know.
They have different headings. The first page is restated, second amended. The second page is second amended, restated. So even though they're the same, now I gotta go ask the lawyer which one is the correct title. That's the kind of things I'm looking for. I'm a detail-oriented guy, and I don't want any more mistakes in the future. I'm gonna be upfront about it. So we've solved the problem of one membership class, but we've discovered another one. And the lawyer has to solve that one. Everybody okay? Follow me?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. All right, well, just for fun, since we have a little extra time, let's look at Charter 2.5 under considerations. We're still thinking the same subject, but let's see what 2.5 says. It's on page 7. read the second sentence.
It's talking about the builders have the same privileges and responsibilities as owners during the time that they own units for construction and resale,
Yep.
including the
Right.
privileges of membership in the association.
Nothing needs to be changed there, but the important point is they're part of the same class, and this reaffirms that they're part of the same one class. Would you agree? All right. Let's look at bylaws 318. Sorry, Kathy.
That's okay, I enjoy it.
Okay,
You're by yourself,
318.
Kathy.
It's page 8 of the bylaws, which is tab 6, 3.18, in the middle of the page, page 8. All you have to do is read the last 3 lines.
Under what paragraph are you looking at?
3.18,
Okay.
the lead-in paragraph. This is also about builders' rights. It doesn't mention anything about class of membership, but it defines builders' rights as well as TCC rights.
Mhm.
So by having one class of membership, we're not changing anybody's rights. Okay?
Okay.
All right? Let's look at Charter 2 the introduction to Charter paragraph 2. I'm just going down the list of what I thought was interesting. It's in italics under the intro to paragraph, Charter 2.
You talking about the second sentence?
Yep, second sentence. What I see is there's 3 entities again: Celebration Company, the association, the owners, and the builders. Those are the 3 entities under the one class of membership. So don't need to change anything there, I don't think, but it conforms with the one class of membership. How about Charter paragraph 1.6, second paragraph?
Interpretation of certain references.
It's the second paragraph under 1.6 in the charter. Any reference to written approval?
Owners or members?
This is when I started getting into, and that's why I sent, I wasn't able to send it to everybody, about technology. I'm sorry, let me speak up. About, okay, about technology, and when I look at this reminds me of the laundry list, that we can write this about email, but who knows what we're gonna be doing in 5 years? And, you know, should we be looking at some phrase or term or whatever that covers transmission of ideas and data and whatever?
It's an important point, but it's more about communication. It's not about defining the membership.
That's true, okay, I just wanted to bring it up while we're here, because it's bothering me.
All right, I'm great, we will get to that.
Okay.
Here's what I'm looking at, the last 2 lines of that second paragraph. It says, with respect to the written consent or approval of owners or members. What's the difference between an owner and a member?
They're one and the same.
They're one and the same. So do we need to say both?
Well, she's got a mute on her end, Susan, or
She's
otherwise
gonna
she won't
mute-
be able to
tell her
hear.
to mute on her
Just
end.
tell her to mute.
Kathy, can you mute your phone?
Yes, am I muted?
No, can you mute your side of the phone?
There's
Is
some,
that good?
Yes.
there's some background noise. If you want to talk, unmute. I'm asking the question, do we need to say owners or members? if it's just one class of member, well, if, remember the
But
three classes.
TCC would be considered a member though, wouldn't they?
Right, well, remember, there's one class of membership, but three entities, owners,
Right, right.
Three minutes of postponed, not gratification, I was gonna say, aggravation. Hey, I copied your email.
I don't think she realizes
She's
it.
not,
Right, we did that.
Yes.
could you go to mute, please? We're getting a lot of,
I think I'm trying to go to mute, I'm not
Okay.
sure it's letting me.
all right.
Am I muted now?
Nope.
No,
Nope.
as long as we can hear you, you're not muted. Well, we'll never hear you.
The answer, yes, you got a paradox there.
All right. Okay. What I'm asking the question is, there's one class of membership, and that consists of owners, there's the word owners, builders, and TCC. So owners is one of the three entities under members. So should we get technical and ask and say, with respect to written consent or approval of the membership?
I mean, it sounds to me, I mean, if I step back from this for a second, it sounds like what we need is a definitions clause within the documents. It sounds to me like what we need is a definitions section within the documents of, because I'm sure this is not going to be the only thing where there's inconsistent phraseology.
It's almost like you're a plan. Thank you, very good. Greg, that's excellent. Look at the last item under considerations. Index to defined terms. At the end of the charter, there is it's on page 79, there's an index to defined terms, and there is owner membership, page 11. And that would be paragraph 4.1. I'm glad you mentioned it, Greg, because what we're going to do as we go through the working groups in this, we're going to update this index to defined terms. So every time you see a term that is repetitive or you feel like is meaningful and needs to be defined, we're going to add it to this index and then locate where it's really defined. Because I checked a lot of these page numbers, sometimes they're nothing on the page.
would it be better off, rather than having an index of membership, to also have the definition, at least briefly, in the index, so someone
I'd
could actually?
prefer that it be a definition thing instead of
It's
me
gonna allow
having to find
people
it
to
through the
have
damn document, yeah.
a glossary type, cheat sheet type approach.
Then you don't have to reference back a page that no longer exists.
Exactly.
Could be, yeah. So I'll go back to page 5, paragraph 1.6. Do we need to consider changing that from owners or members to approval of the owner membership, which is the proper term?
Yeah, owner membership is more
Does that sound better?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's clear, and then it's consistent with the rest of the document? Do I have
But just as
consensus?
importantly, let's make sure we're looking at owner membership, and the definition that's on page 11 is
Yes.
what we think it is as it ties to the rest of the document.
Well, no, you're exactly right. And so, just for fun, turn to page 11, because that's what it says, and guess what? That's where 4.1 is, and that defines owner membership.
But would it be better to have in the index that owner membership 4.1 as opposed to a page number, which can be changed?
I wouldn't put in page numbers, I mean, I like Brian's idea, I mean, if we're gonna do this, let's just define them in the index and not call it an index, let's call it a definition of terms.
Right?
I think we use, again, I haven't really dug into this, but I would almost word search every one of these throughout the document and figure out what consistencies or inconsistencies are going in there, and then figure out, okay, this is our common definition, and then make sure the rest of the document conforms to it.
Right, 'cause I was reading one section, and I think it was about who can be an owner, and it was going through, corporations and whatever, and it didn't have trusts or whatever, but then when I went back and started at the beginning, which was a good idea, it got covered under persons.
Yes.
So, yes, it would have been nice to have a person.
I like both your ideas, because I've already checked some of these index to define terms, and like I said, there are some page numbers where that term is never even on that page. So I'm kind of with you, Greg. I'd like to put owner membership, paragraph 4.1, and then we might turn it into a definition of terms. and make it a glossary. Okay, all good. I just want to point out that that is consideration of chapter 1.6. So the last one is Charter 2.4, second paragraph. If you'll quickly look at that, and I'm pleased that we're going through this before the 45 minutes is up. Second paragraph, 2.4.
That's what I said.
Now, I'm going to make a differentiation here. This particular paragraph, to me and the owner, speaks to title of a unit, mortgage. You own it outright. So it doesn't, it's not the same as owner membership. This is about title to a property, to a unit. So when I read this, it reads okay, because it's not talking about the membership as one of the entities. It's about a person who owns title to a property. Unless I'm missing something, I'm not sure there's anything that needs to be changed here.
You think so? It's covered in the first paragraph, it's recording title to it.
Yeah,
I don't want to change it.
right. Okay, so now we've gone through the considerations, and it's the kind of thing I'm looking at to see if we make a change in one section of the governing documents, is it going to impact another? And that's what I have written out. The issues didn't come from me,
These ones that came
but I
out.
took the time to research where the impact is and where the considerations are. As we get future issues for the next 6 months, you'll know what I'm looking for, and I hope that with the working group that you're in charge of can do the same thing. And so what I'm looking that you may want to do is when you get your laptop and your Word copy, is use the word search function and type in owner membership. There may be 3 references, there might be 17, but you're kind of obligated to look at them. Now realize if you type in a very common word like community, you're going to get hundreds of, and they're just it's scattered. Or the word unit. So you're going to have to pick your searches carefully, and I would almost recommend that you pick a phrase. A phrase might be easier to find in the document than just a single word. I'm giving you some suggestions. That's what I'm doing. Okay. So,
Gary?
to finish up, yes,
Or,
sir.
can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Maybe you were gonna go there with finishing up, but we've got group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here.
Mhm.
Is the attack to go after the issues that are on each page, item by item? So basically, we're saying, hey, we think Jack and team did a great job 10 years ago. This is a pretty solid document. These are the issues we're gonna attack. Obviously, if we're going through an issue and we find another issue, we gotta bring it up.
Right.
But really, each group is fundamentally going after what is here.
Yes.
Is that a true stop? I'm asking
Yes, sir.
to make sure I really understand.
And to reiterate, remember this list came from staff and the Coral Board over a period of about 2 years. This is our starting point, and I'm very hopeful that we, as working groups, will get through this in the next 6 weeks by the end of June. By then, we will have a whole nother set of issues that is gonna come from the public, it's gonna come from us. Tell me what the issue is, and I'll keep assigning it to working groups. So you may start out with this working group in May and June. By August, you may be looking at different items.
Gary, this also includes, I received some public comment after our workshop too. So, but it includes a couple of people that already had sent in some requests.
On the list you gave me? Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, it's in there too.
Yes, sir.
Gary, I would like you to update the charter right now with modifying porches in Exhibit C, the language that was accepted by the board, 2015, and also incorporating amendments 1 and 2 regarding paragraph 12.9 in the chart.
Totally agree. While you guys are working groups, what I'm doing is exactly that. Over the last 10 years, there have been changes to the charter by the Coral Board, and there were at least one or two community-wide votes on charter changes. I'm going to be incorporating those in the revision mode because they never have been. But they're valid and they're already approved. We don't have to discuss them. I just have to put them in the document. So that's one of the tasks that I'm going to task staff, is to give me the list. I know these two, porches and paragraph 12.9, and that's what I'm doing in the background. Totally agree. Yes, sir.
Will there be a continued redistribution of changes? 'Cause I guess what I'm thinking about is, we're gonna have a red line version that you're going to be, you and Kathy are gonna be, or probably you are gonna be the master of, and it almost needs to come out, because as people are reviewing things, you could literally have somebody reviewing something that somebody else is changing, so at least as changes are made, people know this is the red line version on July 16th, 2019.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
That's the kind of thing I'm going to give the interim reports on, is where we are in the master document. And that's based on the task force meeting to discuss the working group issues that have been adjudicated by the working groups. Now, as a task force, we're going to look at all of our work to decide as a team, did we take the right approach? Do we agree with that working group? And then I'll put it in the master document. Because we're representing the whole community here.
So as we're going through this thing, I mean, there was one particular item that I picked up that I felt needs to be cleaned up a bit because of, again, changes in technology having to do with election and voting. We should send that to you.
Yes, take any comments you get from the public or things that you sit and just find out on your own or anywhere else, send them to me and I'll redistribute them to the working groups. Because I'd like to do a little bit of homework to get you going in the right direction. But it's okay, we're gonna get through all of them, one way or the other.
These working, this, the 1 through 5, do they represent a particular section or?
No.
No. They're
No,
all-
I categorized them according to subject
Okay, that's
matter.
what I wanted to know.
And here's the secret that I'm asking you to do. I organize these by subjects, but if you'll look, they're scattered throughout the governing documents. So guess what? By the end of June, you will all be very familiar with going through this document page by page. And that's what I want to have happen, so that by July, we can tackle the big items.
What are the names?
They're political.
Oh, okay.
But that means, Eileen, is by that time, if you get up in a Crow meeting, we won't call on you to speak.
Okay.
They're particular.
Gary, how are you planning on deconflicting that, though? My concern becomes, and I don't know there's anything we can do about it, but since the way we've broken this down is everybody's kind of got everything throughout the entire documents, there are going to be some things which are clearly in my group versus your group versus anybody else's. There are going to be other things which are not.
Right.
Especially when it comes to definitional things. Hey, I may look at this and say, and spend 2 weeks working on a definition that somebody else is working on the same thing. So I'm concerned with that, and that bleeds into a kind of a change management thing that.
That was my red line comment that I was talking about.
I mean, do we have a SharePoint site we can do a shared, does Crow own? I'm just, I can already see a train wreck coming if we're doing this all by email.
Just do it on Google
Well,
Doc, can't you?
I want to make sure that it's secure and only us can access it.
Well, you should be able to close, technology committee? Anybody?
I will
mean, you
ask
should-
Rick.
Yeah, you should be able to do a Google Doc and just restrict your access, can't you?
I mean, at work we use SharePoint, so I'm sure Google Docs is, I'm just, if we're doing this all by email distributions, I'm concerned that somebody's gonna catch the wrong version, and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
we're gonna lose a couple
Right.
weeks and.
Well, you will have, I'm going to be the clearing office for this. Periodically, I'm going to send out a new version of Word that hopefully you can, the only time I'm going to redistribute a new version is after the task force adjudicates changes. then you know that we've agreed to this change, when it's tracking number 1.1, 1-1. I'm never gonna send out half work by a working group that hasn't been adjudicated by the whole task force.
That doesn't.
And now, if we use the SharePoint, the number one priority for me is to make sure that it's restricted access, that no one else can open it up and make changes.
And we do that, again, SharePoint has that capability, we just
Right.
need to establish it through the
Exactly.
technology committee or whatever.
That's gonna be.
We can do it amongst us too.
Yeah.
And
Right.
Patrick will probably have some insight to
We-
that.
We will work, I want to get started,
Mhm.
but I appreciate your concern, I'm hoping for the best. Let's go through it over the next 6 weeks and see how we can better manage it. We'll learn by doing.
On our end, on staff and board end, we'll make sure that we figure out how to get a Google Doc so that's, or something that is secured that you guys can all work on.
Now, for now, it's 6:45. If there's nothing else, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. We're going to take a 15-minute break.